So I'm saying thank you, panelists, for this session and our participants. We are going to start with the Ministry of Education, where Director Mother will take us through a presentation on what has been done so far in terms of foundation learning. Then from there, we'll go to Kizito.
Good morning, all. Thank you all for coming to this session. And I also want to thank the conveners, the INSPIRED team, and the Coalition for Foundational Learning in Kenya, the organizations involved. I know we have a strong team that is now working on foundational learning at the ministerial level. We have also created a community of practice on foundational learning and on ECE, on which a platform on which most of you are part of, and we are still expanding. Even to those of you who are not members, you can get in touch so that we can come together. As they set up the presentation, then I just want to highlight a few things in relation to reforms related to foundational learning. And these are embedded, or their origin is the Presidential Working Party on Education report, reform report, of which Mr. Director Kizito from COG was part of the secretariat member, yeah. Yeah, he's saying that he was a member, not secretariat, but a member. And so I just want to highlight a few things that came out that have brought us up to this level, that we are discussing this important issue globally. So the Presidential Working Report found a lot of weaknesses after visiting the whole of the country. And the major weakness or challenge that they saw in the area of delivery of ECE is that there was weak pre-primary education. And that is what I saw in the Presidential Working Report. And so from the POPA report, there were several recommendations that there should be tracking of data so that it informs policy. And on this area, we are working with the COG together. And last year, we had an opportunity, COG being led by Director Kizito. We were able to convene at Nakuru and come up with a module for collecting data for on ECE generally, not only on learners, but on ECE generally. And we are planning to do a pilot in Turkana in the first week of September. So that is something that is still in progress. Together we'll do this also with the ministerial reform on chemists, where now chemists will be relaunched again, and will track not only learners, but a child from birth all the way. And that unique identifier will be the number that will be used across the board. Then within that, again, Ministry of Education was asked through the Directorate of ECD or whichever structures to work with COG and county governments to come up with foundational learning guidelines that would then guide the learning in the early years. And so I will, that is the presentation that I'm going to do to you, how far we have gone with it. We have been working so hard. And together with the COG, we have a TWG with COG, with the county government represented by the chair here, and also other key partners and our sagas in the Ministry of Education. So I'll articulate that in my next presentation. And then there was also the issue of also reviewing certain tools or creating other tools that would reinforce learning and delivery of ECE. And such tools include Kenya School Readiness Assessment Tool was to be reviewed. And as at that, we already have a zero draft through the support of our our partners represented here, then we have been able to review the KISRAT tool, and we have a zero draft. We want to start validation. We'll be calling all of you to come and look at it, and we are also calling experts and technical assistants on that area. So that is something that we are doing. We are also working on modalities on the marginalized, and in such key area, we are focusing on areas like Northeastern, where there's late entry on because of the religious aspect, learners spending a lot of time in Duxi and getting late entry into pre-primary. Those are areas of focus that we are going also to work on together with the INSPIRED team and other partners and NACONEC also, and Aga Khan Foundation. We also want to learn a few things from them. So, and recently, we have had a long walk together with the COG and county governments, directors, and we have done a baseline survey that will inform how delivery of ECD is in Kenya. And this one was sponsored by World Bank. A national ECD survey has been carried out. It has taken like 2 to 3 years, but the report is now ready and is with the World Bank. Very soon they'll be releasing, and we are looking forward to launch it before the end of this year. And it is going to give us a full picture of what happens in the ECE space in the whole of Kenya, because the data collection was done in all the 47 counties. We did not sample. We only sampled the schools, but within all department for children's services. I believe those of you who attended the session yesterday were able to listen even to the PS basic, not basic, but children's services. So they are the ones driving the process, but we are all co-conveners of this and partakers. And there is a lot, most of that policy document is actually on education. The other aspects are very little, but most of it, even the feedback we got from the cabinet, were 90% education oriented. So that is all that I can say, a brief on the reforms at policy level that we are undertaking. But I want to emphasize the fact that these reforms, we are not doing it alone at national level, because they are meant to be used by the county governments. And so we are working hand in hand to do everything together. Mr. Kizito is leading the COG, and Dr. Ireri is also representing the technical persons at the county government, that is the directors in charge of ECD, and we are always in communication and working together in all of this. They are all part of the TWG. Thank you very much. I hope right now the presentation is on the screen, and I'll now just take you through the draft foundational learning guideline which we have jointly worked on. Yes, I think draft foundational learning guideline, we have worked together with the national team, with the county government team, and also with the COG team and our key players who are our partners, and they are also funding us. So perhaps I'll ask the chair if we can now switch the positions so that we can see the presentation. So I don't know whether this is the beginning, Eric. Just go to the very first beginning, yeah? So what you are seeing on the screen on the first slide was 16th of May, which was a very big day for us because it gave birth to this process. And on this day, we convened with stakeholders at KICD. Those of you who know some of these people, they are representatives of our sagas, the organizations, the coalition on foundational learning, the Director General there in the blue suit. Then we had the foundational learning champions from across the world that had come to Kenya and were discussing this issue. So that was a nice breaker for us. And from there, we were able now to think through and start the process. So let's go to the next. So this presentation, I want to take you through what we have done. We have done this presentation to our senior management team at the Ministry of Education for the purposes of validation, and they have already given us your comment. So as we interact today, I kindly request you that you also criticize it thoroughly so that it can enhance the document. So it's for this day. And now I just want to, this section, I included it just to give a highlight, because some people will start thinking that this is a policy. No, it is not a policy. It is a guideline. And that is what we were directed by the Presidential Working Party to do, to develop a guideline and not a policy. We already have a policy that will be guiding education, will be guiding welfare, will be guiding the health. The Kenya Integrated ECD policy, the draft policy. So now what we are doing is just a guideline. And so anything that maybe we have missed in this guideline, then from that policy, those who have the in-depth can give us the inputs, because a guideline is just something that will be for operational. So it will not be endorsed at very advanced level, at cabinet level, but together with the COG and county governments, we'll be able to endorse it together. So what is a policy? Policy is a formal rule or principle that is at a high level or a high level statement, and people must adhere to it. It is a must adhere if it is a policy. Yeah, for example, language of education policy and such like policies, you know them, even in the county you have them. But a guideline is just a recommendation of procedures, and people may choose to subscribe to it. So like community of practice in foundational learning, then we should be able to choose to adhere to the guideline. There's some flexibility in a guideline, and there are several examples that have also guided us, like ADEA has a starter pack on foundational learning, which has really guided us. And this one is for the whole of Africa. All the ministers of education who are in Africa and have subscribed to ADEA's foundational learning coalition, then they adhere to the guidelines of the starter pack. And I want to inform you that Kenya is a member, and I'm a focal point person of the ADEA foundational learning coalition. So I'm the one who gives the minister the feedback, and also at the country level, I'm able to coordinate the minister to attend the meetings and listen and write all the technical information to him. There's the flat by the UNICEF foundational learning tracker created by the UNICEF and all the others. So let's go to the next. I just wanted us to be clear about that we are not developing a policy, but we are developing a guideline. So what is the structure of this guideline? The structure of the guideline, we have borrowed it from the international and national guidelines in terms of content. And so we have introduction, we have situational analysis of foundational learning landscape in Kenya, and commitments by the government of Kenya, strategies to address the gaps in foundational learning, principles underlying foundational learning, roles of institutions and key stakeholders in promoting foundational learning. So those are some, and finally we shall have an implementation plan where we will be able to say what do we do by what time. in terms of the gaps that we have identified in foundational learning in Kenya. What is the name that we have suggested for this guideline? We have suggested the guideline to have a name called the draft. Right now it is a draft, but we shall have the national guidelines for the implementation of foundational learning in Kenya. That is our suggested name, but it is still open to revision depending on what you will feel. So we can go to the next. Yeah, so the draft guidelines for the implementation of foundational learning, we have followed the starter pack produced by ADEA in terms of design of the guidelines for Kenya. So the starter pack for ADEA is for the whole of the Africa, but we have domesticated it into our Kenyan context, but not word to word, but we have also been very creative to see what fits us and what can we learn from it. So therefore, those are some of the key issues that have come up that now I think it's somehow a repetition of what I already said. We go to the next. So what is the rationale for the guidelines? The purpose of the guideline is first of all to define clearly what foundational learning is and why it is important to parents and to the nation as to children, to parents, and nation as a whole. So that is what we have done. And then secondly, guidelines set out clearly the challenges that children in Kenya and many countries in the world are facing in achieving expected levels. So this area, we just tried to bring out why foundational learning is important. And we also defined foundational learning. You know, foundational learning is defined in various ways. Yeah, of course, there's a constant definition across the board that any learner who is not able who has not acquired the basic foundational skills at the age of 10, then is learning poor. So is below, is falling short of that. But then, in terms of defining in terms of levels of education, the definition varies, even in the African context. When we were at a workshop with the ADEA, we found that some countries even define the whole of primary education as foundational learning. Some keep it at ECD, some keep it at... So, and in our Kenyan context, we are going to see how our policy frameworks have defined foundational learning. Let's go to the next. So I think I've already defined that. What foundational learning refers to. Foundational learning refers to the acquisition of basic literacy, numeracy, and socio-emotional skills that are essential for building blocks for all skills, including digital skills that are central to thriving in the 21st century, making it critical to focus policy on securing strong foundational skills. So any learner who has not acquired these things that we are defining here by the age of 10, then that learner is poor, yes, has learning poverty, what is called learning poverty, then that learner is in that bracket. So why is it important? Why is it important? Scholars like Hasberg has realized or has stated that those who have not acquired this, it affects them even in their jobs, in their career choices, and how they'll perform in their future careers. Not only at this level, not only at the examination, but even in their future, it affects their futures. A learner who does not acquire these basic skills, even in their future life, they are not able. And even researchers have further said that the impact is not only at a learner level or a child's level, but even at household level. It makes families to become poor eventually. Yeah, because a learner who would have maybe done better in a career now does less, and therefore that family ends up to be poor. Nationally, again, it brings down the economic level of the nation down. So let's continue. So I'm already in the part of why it is important. Next slide, yeah. So what I've been talking about is here the impact of foundational learning, how pre-primary impacts on the brain development of the learner, affecting education, health, behavior. Of course, you know, when somebody does not advance or their mind do not go well with the education level, you know, even the behavioral pattern is very different, isn't it? Yeah, so it will impact on their behavior, their health, and productivity and all that. Enhancing foundational learning will help eliminate extreme poverty, boost shared prosperity, and create human capital needed for economies to diversify. Because when a learner acquires these skills at the basic level, at the lowest level, then they are able even to learn advanced things, the building blocks. They are able to learn easily. But a learner who is struggling will continue struggling even at higher levels and cannot prosper. So those are some of the things at national level you can see what happens and all that. Let's continue to the next slide. Okay, policy legal frameworks. So here we are talking about the progress that we have made as Kenya in foundational learning. And even continentally, I don't talk about continentally. We all know what has happened. The World Bank on Education Sector Strategy 2020. And then where they found that even COVID impacted negatively on foundational learning. And so many children were left behind. And so that is why this discussion around foundational learning has become very big, because we lost the gains when COVID hit the globe. And then GPE again is really focusing on the issue of foundational learning, continental education strategy for Africa, which liaises closely with ADEA, is really also focusing. And their main focus for CESA is on ECDE. They are concentrating more on issues of ECDE at CESA. Next slide, please. In Kenya, we are talking about the constitution, which has mandated us, all of us, to make sure that learners get free and compulsory basic education, which is part of. So where is the challenge? The challenge is that, look at globally, how many children are not achieving minimum proficiency? Children who are at learning poverty, 617 million. You come to Sub-Saharan Africa, we are being told that 7% of children are not achieving. They are learning poor, those who are in learning poverty. In Kenya, look at the percentages there. That was established by NEC. Those who are unable to attain the required levels, the proficiencies in either language or otherwise. Let's continue. So these are our national challenges at a glance, which I'll not talk about. Yeah, what causes the gaps? The gap is there in the middle. There are problems with the middle tier support. Middle tier are the people at the, if you are at the county, you have the sub-county, you have the ward, people, these education officers there, up to the teacher level. There's a problem, no support for them. Like, for example, now county governments, have your people been trained on or retooled on CBC? You will find that most counties have not retooled. And if they have retooled, maybe they have used the wrong people, because we recommend KICD, who have created or developed the curriculum, to do this. So there is that gap. There are other gaps, coordinating delivery of foundational learning. Right now, how many people have interventions in your counties? And do you know whether they are doing the right thing? How many organizations, do you know whether they are doing the right thing? Who has vetted them? So they may be doing the wrong thing, or maybe half-baked. and that coordination is not there, is not very good. Yeah. There are so many other issues that we have brought up. Curriculum and policy implementation, the way it is being done right now is scattered. Go to the next, please. Commitments, those are the commitments. We have like 5 commitments that we want to see from the foundational learning guideline that we have committed to do. But our overarching goal is that we want to end learning poverty and leaving no child behind by 2032. Why 2032? Because we are imagining that it will be kumi bila break. Because it's the vision of the president, isn't it? The Popper report. So that is our imagination politically. And for you to be successful with foundational learning, then you also need political commitment and political support. So these are our, which you will be able to read in details. I'll leave the PowerPoint behind, can be shared. Next. Strategies to address the gaps in foundational learning. These are some of the strategies. You remember I talked about data. You remember instructional support at county levels, the middle tier. Very, very important. Pedagogy and all that. In my introduction, I didn't say that in Kenya, our foundational learning is defined from PP1 to grade 3. That is what the basic education curriculum framework talks about foundational level. So from PP1 to grade 3 is where we are focused on. That is our definition in the Kenyan context when we looked at our policy framework. So we have talked about strategies to address, and in the roles of the different stakeholders, you will see those strategies again appearing. Next. Principles underlying, we were thinking of moving this maybe immediately after the introduction there, but we are talking about principles like equity and inclusion. And under equity and inclusion, you can see what we are focusing on. And then formative and summative assessments, evidence-based interventions like what the INSPIRED is talking about, and so many others are trying to do evidence-based interventions. Coordination and collaboration, very important for us. National and county governments, and not only that, even with the partners and the private institutions, we want to focus on this and strengthen this. It's very, very key to us as one of the principles. Next slide, please. So roles, I'll not talk, but these are some of the key education stakeholders that we have identified with their roles that they'll play. And we have annexes, and later on we'll include implementation plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. So thank you, Mother, for that conclusive presentation. It has taken a bit of time, but I think it was important. So maybe I'll just have one question for you. Now that you've talked about in the Kenya context that foundation learning is from PP1 to grade 3, those 2 levels of education are managed, one by the national government, the other one by the county government. So maybe I would want to know what strategies the ministry or the national government is putting in place to ensure that these policies that you've talked about and the guidelines are interpreted and implemented at both levels of government.
Okay, measures that are taken. Of course, you can see that I'm here right now. I think it is the first time a director in charge of ECD is attending a devolution conference. And that is one of the measures. We are trying to reach out. We are trying to disseminate. We are trying to work together. There's no activity that we are doing that we don't invite the COG, we don't invite representatives of the county government. Yes. And we are also trying to approve at national level, to approve as many as possible interventions. When people come to us, we advise, we sit down, listen to them, and advise them on how best these interventions can be delivered within the county governments where they are interested. At times, we even check and see whether it is even okay to go to those areas, because there is always a lot of duplication. So when we listen, we even advise and tell them, no, you would have gone to here and not there, depending on the needs that we know at the national level. So the way we ensure this is very, very varied. And what we have decided at the Ministry of Education is that we will try to work together as much as possible. Just late last month, I was in Garissa attending the ECD Network Conference, so that we can blend so much and discuss some of these issues together and work together.
Thank you so much. We are going to go to our next panelist, CEO Kizito, who will talk to us about what is Maarifa Center and how our county is using the data from Maarifa Center in terms of, we'll come back to questions. So let's have our second presentation on Maarifa Center and how these counties are using the Maarifa Center, especially in terms of EC planning and also in terms of resource mobilization and working on the ECD sector. Kizito, please.
Thank you. I have just asked somebody to check where this invasive booming is coming from, lest they want to interfere with this session. Now, I really want to thank, first of all, the convener of this side event and all the partners, and weigh in on the conversation on foundational learning, but with a key focus on what is it at the Council of Governors and all the other opportunities we have to embed this foundational learning within our governance architecture of the two levels of government. The first is that you will agree with me that matters concerning children are scattered in terms of intervention by government. There are matters regarding children that are hosted in the Ministry of Health, matters regarding children that are hosted in the State Department responsible for Children's Services, matters regarding children that are hosted in the State Department for Agriculture, because food basically is, and food security is basically agriculture. Matters of children that are hosted in the State Department for Education, matters of children that are hosted, so you can mention a name. And therefore that in itself creates some gap with regard to intervening on matters children, even before we speak to foundational learning. And the bigger gap is that the Children Act does not also provide that clarity. It just provides clarity on the rights, but does not provide clarity on how the county government then what the county government is supposed to do, and how the county government is supposed to interact with the other level of government with regard to responsibility over matters of children. So that gap has made us realize that a child can be born, reach 7 years, they have not attended pre-primary, they want to go to grade 1. They reach grade 6 or grade 8 in the former system, and they don't have a birth certificate. They reach grade 7 or they go to an ECD and they have not finished being immunized. So it is more complex than just focusing on one state department. And with regard to matters of foundational learning, at the council, therefore, we are trying to model, because of this complexity, we have an opportunity to provide guidance to the county governments on a comprehensive framework of early childhood development. Even before this child is born, what is the county supposed to do? When the primary health workers are visiting the homes and collecting data on children, what is it that they must be able to do? And therefore inform the county government on actions that are required by other departments. So by the time a child goes to grade 1, the first 1,000 days of that child's existence on earth have been comprehensively addressed, and we know that this child has the milestones required of a child within the first 1,000 days. And that will only come through when we have a comprehensive early childhood development framework that does not only look at pre-primary education, but looks at what happens to this child before they even are of age to step into a pre-primary school. So the county government, the Council of Governors is preparing, and with the support of the county leadership, the county executive committee members and the county chief officers and directors, we will be developing a model ECD policy for county governments. Now, push to foundational learning now, which in the constitution, we regard what is there, pre-primary education that was given to the county governments. Sometimes we again forget where we came from. Where did we come from? In 2013, how many teachers on a government payroll in pre-primary schools? 0. How much money was there to do anything for pre-primary schools in this country? I can tell you it was only 2 million. 2 million shillings. That is what was truncated and moved as part of the equitable share in 2013. But as we speak, we can very proudly say that the teachers who are on a county payroll are upwards of 30,000. The teachers who are not on a county payroll, but they are in ECD and they are supported by county governments, they are upwards of 20,000. So we have a pool of 50,000 plus teachers of early childhood development centers that we can fault for maybe non-performance. We can fault for everything. But for us, I think we should step back and say we can celebrate the county governments for at least that achievement of not less than 50,000 caregivers, teachers who are supported directly by county governments. So and I can speak to infrastructure. What was the state of infrastructure 2013? What was the state of learning materials in 2013? What was the state of curriculum delivery and quality assurance in ECD? It was absent totally. But now we can speak to very deliberate attempts by county governments to provide learning and teaching material, to provide infrastructure, to embed a curriculum within those schools, And many county governments have quality assurance teachers who then, quality assurance officers who then we need to provide support to do even a better job. That notwithstanding, at the Maarifa Center, we have a lot of good practice stories that are documented in Maarifa Center. And we are looking forward to now having a specific compendium that is just focusing on pre-primary education, ECD. We will be having a compendium in this quarter that is focusing on what is it that Busia has done, what is it that Makueni has done, what is it that a story for each of the counties. And therefore, through our knowledge management champions, we will be reaching out to the respective counties, the CECs, to provide us support, to initiate the stories, so that we can have a very dedicated compendium on matters of ECD to celebrate the milestones that we have made. At our Maarifa Center, we are also having an open data portal. If you had a chance to go to the pavilion of the Council of Governors, you will be able to be shown where all our ECD centers are in this country, all of them, county by county. We are improving on that, and we want to get the data of the children that are in those ECD centers, so that from a glance, somebody accessing the COG portal is able to get data of all the pre-primary schools. We have started with the public ones, but we want to move further with the support of the county executives to also get the data on the private ECD centers, so that we have all this data at one place. Further to that, we are aware that each of the county governments is developing or already has a dedicated GIS lab. Please, if you don't have the data of the ECDs and what you are doing in the ECDs in the GIS lab of your county, this is an opportunity that we want to have. Through the land governance program that we are facilitating in all the 47 counties, we want to make sure that by the time that program is, the land governance program is done, all the GIS labs in this country for each of the 47 county governments are in place and are providing data. I want to celebrate those counties. I don't have a figure for all of them, but there are counties like Vihiga which pioneered the GIS lab, and you go there and they can be able to tell you, today we had 20 learners in this ECD center only, but they were expecting 35. So maybe 15 did not attend the school on this day. That is how far the Vihiga GIS lab has gone for now. Each of the counties has that opportunity before we wind up this program. But at the same time, the issue of data is quite critical. And we are also developing a guideline, a model county statistics policy. That model county statistics policy is supposed to help us anchor a county statistics bureau in each of the counties, so that issues of data are not like, whom have you asked for the data? If you ask Martha Odundo, she'll give you data for ECD. If you ask Kizito, he'll give you data for ECD. You ask KNBS, they'll give you data, and this data is all different. So we want to make sure that the county government, as a constitutional authority for matters of statistics, is able to host all statistics of that county, including statistics on ECDE. Finally, as I present the opportunities, at the Marifa Center and through the Council of Governors, you are all aware we did finalize on the pre-primary teacher schemes of service. Not all counties have implemented that to the full because of resourcing issues. Secondly, later today, courtesy of the Council of Governors and with the support of the county governments, we will be launching a county pre-primary school feeding model policy document, which then each county can be able to customize to ensure that there is an opportunity for each child to have a meal while at school in this country, in all our ECD centers. Some are already advanced. They have models that are already advanced. They are already implementing a school feeding policy, but we now want an overarching policy guideline each county will develop so that it is able to guide them on what to do to ensure that the access to education, pre-primary education, is not interfered with just because the child did not have an opportunity to have a meal. Thirdly, I had alluded to this, we are also developing a model ECD policy, which I had mentioned. And finally, on the other actions we are doing is considering the very diverse interventions of matters of children. We are reviewing all the policy documents that the county governments have on matters of children, so that we can comprehensively look at what has the county already done in the policy and legislative framework, and therefore provide a general guidance on then what improvements for each of the counties needs to be done to ensure that the welfare of the children is comprehensively addressed within the statutes that we have as the county governments. And a missing opportunity we have had, in spite of the very good work that we are doing, the health sector. I can assure you, the cabinet secretary and the chair of the health committee are on a one-to-one. Wanapigiana simu, tukutane wapi, tukunywe chai, tuongee mambo ya afya, we move forward. The agriculture sector is on a one-to-one. The cabinet secretary of agriculture and the chair of the council of governors for agriculture are on a one-to-one. Wanapigiana simu. So they make things move easily because the apex decision makers have already given direction. Other sectors are also doing the same. That is something that we want also to develop. A comprehensive intergovernmental framework in the education sector, so that the cabinet secretary can also be on a one-to-one with the chair of the education committee of the council of governors to help us unlock a lot of these, institutional barriers that people, the roadblocks people put on the way for delivery of services to the child with regard to learning. I want to thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. A good one, eh? So I think at this point you're going to better view. So we can have questions from the audience and to the panelists. We'll first pick the first three. Yes. We have a microphone. Oh, you have.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Mine is to appreciate the panelists, the two panelists. At least I was in to listen to Madam Odundo and my colleague director, Kizito. And allow me to say that this is a very interesting discussion, and I'm actually excited that I came to this tent. But allow me to say that perhaps maybe what you would have looked at is the issue of policy and other underpinnings. Can you hear me? Oh, this is better. Let me appreciate the two panelists for the rich discussions, and I've really enjoyed listening to both of you. But perhaps what we needed to ask ourselves is whether we needed to concentrate on data to action. Actually, the real issue here is from paper to data to action. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, number one, if you don't have the right underpinnings, chances are that you will not get the right interventions. If you look at the discussions that we've held today, and when you were looking at other legal frameworks and policy frameworks that exist in the country, you realize that we have several frameworks that address issues of education, but without really addressing them coherently. Now, we are talking about guidelines here. And as a lawyer, I would tell you that guidelines do not exist without foundational documents. Guidelines are usually administrative documents. They must be anchored either in a policy or a legal framework. And that is why we need to ask ourselves, do we have the right legal and policy frameworks to support this? And that is why I'm saying that we need to look at paper to data into action. And for us to be able to have actions, we must be able to understand what are the principles and the guidelines underpinning the issues that you're talking about. And if you look at the problem statement that you presented, Madam Odundo, you realize that one of the issues that was actually left out is a lack of understanding or an appreciation of the foundational learning in this country. If people don't understand the whys, you will not be able to address the whats. And allow me also to say that as a Council of Governors, if we have a compendium on early childhood learning, and if it is not founded on the right principles, what we'll have is that we will have so many stories that are actually not informed. I like the fact that as in Kenya, we have actually talked about the age of 10 years. I do not know about other jurisdictions, but if you look at the age of 10, it means that you're talking about education that is both in the national government and in the county government. And I like what my director has said. There is absolutely no way that we are going to address these matters unless the two levels of government are actually working together. You have actually addressed the guidelines, and they are beautiful guidelines. And I like the fact that you say that at the very end, by the way, the second last slide is actually about principles. Principles must come up because they are the foundation upon which then you are able to develop the policy intervention and address the policy issues. There is absolutely no way we are going to achieve this unless the national government and the county government and the community and other stakeholders come together and have a conversation. I'll be very happy when you are validating these documents that I will sit in that discussion. But I can tell you, unless we address the foundation of education, we will not be able to achieve it. How many people understand that if children don't have a good foundation, it actually affects learning outcomes and other outcomes? Because it's not just about the education outcomes, it's about many outcomes, and you are able to address it. How many people how many people do understand that? Perhaps we need to go back and ask ourselves the why conversation, because if we are correct about the why conversation, we will not be having this conversation, and perhaps we will be talking about implementation of some of the recommendations that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's more of a comment than a question, but I think that's good. We'll take care of it. Then, yes,
thank you very much. As I said, I'm Naholi Beatrice, County Government of Busia. As well, I'm the Secretary of the Education Caucus at COG. So I speak for the 47 counties. And I really want to appreciate your presentations, both of you from Madundo and Mr. Wanakizito. Thank you. It was actually very informative. And thank you for the organizers of this session. I think for me, mine will also be like a comment. And I really like the way Wanakizito ended it, talking about, in fact, I've read comprehensive intergovernmental working relationships. And that is what I think, and just according to what we've said, if we don't understand the whys as counties right from the beginning, and it becomes very hard for us at the end for buy-in. And I like what Hamasi said. She said she sits and she I think you usually you talk to your minister, to the minister, who I think informs the president on what is happening. So I know in such a process that happens. It always goes up, isn't it? So you will get information, you go share with the minister, and I'm sure in turns it finds out to state house. Now the challenge you're having in county government is that, yes, and I'm not demeaning our directors in any way, they really work very hard. They come for those meetings, but at times the channel of communication back to the county level, where I sit in cabinet, I'm supposed to brief my governor on what is happening. But that is always lacking. The directors that I anyway appreciate, they come and do a lot of technical work with you people. The CECs, we are called much later and told, okay, now there's a document you validate. Asking yourself, how? What is this? When was it? Like I'm hearing there is one that is being launched. Is it, you said in September? You are launching something? I'm hearing for the first time. But we are the implementers. And as a policymaker, my governor should now be up to date with what is happening. So that just the way you inform, so I think I would like to suggest, I know you prefer working with the directors, but I think as COG, maybe with what is doing here, at least let's have the caucus, at least people from the CEC caucus in those working groups. I know we are policymakers, yes, but a way of communicating. Because otherwise that's how it comes to a place when you are like, we are disowning and saying no. As counties, we don't know. And I'm sure most partners are wondering nowadays, it's like, you come and you're like, but then, in fact, I think they're wondering always when you come to a meeting and there's national and county governments and you tell you, we don't know, we disown them. I said they start wondering, what is happening in this country? And we are one country. That child is one. That child is just one. I couldn't come to an county and national government, and the child is devolved. So I think I like the way you've said you will work with us. I think in the spirit of a newness in this country, let's really work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Wasili. Let's have the last question in the interest of time because we still have another panel.
Okay.
Yes, at the back there.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Martin Opere. I'm the CCM Education, Homa Bay County Government. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have 3 concerns. Maybe the last one may not involve our presentation in this room, but it still involves county government. Number 1 is about data of pupils who transit from home to pre-primary school. Do we have data that we can say that all pupils who are ready to transit from home to school are in school? And I think that data is important because when you look at national government, when they talk about transition from primary to high school, they have data that they can rely on, that there's 100% transition. So I think as a county government, we need to look at that so that no child is left behind and join school late. Number 2 is about engagement between the county, the COG, particularly Chair Education Committee. In my view, since I joined the county government, I think we are a little bit slow in terms of engaging counties. The education committee of the county government at the governor's level, they are very, very slow in engaging the county government on matters education. I look at what is happening in health. They are very much on course, which is not happening in education. Since we joined, I think we have been called for meetings twice, from 2022 to 2025 now. And I think there are a number of things that we need to bring on board. One of them is the retooling of our teachers so that our instructors, our ECD teachers are aligned with the curriculum. And even when it comes to curriculum development, there's a bit of a challenge that when you work in the county government and another person works in the national government, there's a feeling that you are like we are in charge of ECD. They think we are also ECD pupils.
Kindly summarize so that we can finish up, please.
Finally, there's too much conversation along ECD, and we leave out vocational training. I think COG need also to scale up the conversation around vocational training, because as things run now, we are likely to close most of our vocational training centers because of the opening up of technical training institutes and national polytechnics. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll give the presenters just 2 minutes to wind up and maybe touch on the issues that have been raised. So starting with the
Well, I must say I align with all the comments from Waziri. That gap on data and therefore the transition from the household to a pre-primary school is a gap that I alluded to. That we do not have a framework of knowing how a child is developing right from the time they are born to the time they are eligible for primary school, for pre-primary school. We don't have a framework in Kenya. So we are working on that, and we will be reaching out to you to be able to get your views on the structure and content of that comprehensive early childhood development policy for each of the counties. I totally agree that that gap of engagement with the CCMs, which Waziri Busia has also alluded to, that is something that we have noted and we will be dealing with it. The vocational training centers, that is another cancer, in the room, and we must deal with it. I totally agree. And right now, because this was just specifically on this, the first entry point, we have determined 2 entry points. One is, just like we have the scheme of service for the pre-primary school, which was adopted by the Council of Governors and is largely up to 80% of the counties have implemented it to the full. But the resource gap has been a challenge. We are also on track to develop one for the trainers or in the vocational training centers, so that at least that comfort is available for the trainers. And I must say, I resonate with the views that you have been able to raise, and we will be dealing with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I would say that the madam who is in charge of legal at the COG, this is also like a validation process, because the members represented here are also education stakeholders. So the comments that will come out of here is going also to build into this conversation and into this document that we are making. But I also want to say that this guideline is already backed up by legal and policy frameworks that are available for ECE in Kenya. I know that the COG or the county governments enacted ECE Act in 2021, and it is there, though of course there are some things that came in between that should be realigned also to the National Education Act, but it's still an act that is in existence and in use. So that also backs it. There's the Presidential Working Party report. That's a legal document that COG and county governments were also part of the process. There's the National Pre-Primary Policy of 2017 and National Standard Guidelines Policy of 2018. Those are still documents that are still valid and legal. So, and the basic education curriculum framework, I could not only talk about all the policy and frameworks that are guiding curriculum in Kenya that backs this conversation, but they are there. National Education Sector Support document that we have, the NESP, is also in place. It's guiding this and has articulated issues of foundational learning and the gaps. So it is embedded on so many other policies and legal documents that are in existence. The Constitution itself is the supreme law, yeah? And has already talked about this. So I think what we need now for us at national government is to come up with a guideline, something that, because coming up with policies, of course, I'm seeing counties are coming up with policies. I don't know if it is their mandate. It's okay, you come up with them. But so many policies, again, is not also very good if they cannot be implemented. You have a problem in this, make a policy. A problem in this, make a policy. When will you implement all this? I think for us, we have felt that a guideline is good so that we have something simple that can be operationalized. Then I also want to comment on the issue of the caucus of CECs. I appreciate your comment, Madam. And this is a day that I've been looking forward to as a director in charge of VCD at the national level. I also want to say that perhaps there's a problem of communication somewhere. The communication channel should be streamlined and made efficient, because even in this process, your CEO of COG, I have a letter from her that nominated CEC Makueni in charge of education, but she told me she moved on to another department. Elizabeth Muli, she's nominated as the person to sit with us. So when I contacted her, she had already been transferred. So that is another challenge that we cannot control politically, because, we cannot tell governors not to move the CECs, but I appreciate we can follow up with you. So Director Kizito and Elizabeth are supposed to be sitting on this. So I think I can stop at that, but please help us as the executive members.
So I think we've come to the end of the presentation today, and I want to thank all the panelists that we have, Kizito and Director Mother, for the spirited conversations that we had on the topic of the day. I also want to thank all the participants for ensuring that you've been here to give an ear and also to make your contributions. Unfortunately, we have another group coming in, and in the interest of time, I think we'll end it there. Let's have a round of applause for all the presenters, and thank you so much for taking part in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I'll quickly invite, we have one more session to go. So Prof, my CEC from my county, don't leave me, don't abandon us now. I want to invite semester team and the Action Foundation and EdTech. We want to do it joint because of time now. So you just come in front. We are going to move fast. I think that was important because policy matters sometimes are very critical. And we also started late. That's where we are struggling with time. But I think we want to see if we can manage very quickly the remaining time. Okay. We have one more colleague coming. So, you can put it down. Let me take this. We have, we start with error analysis, and we are going to ask the semester team to move this way. We'll ask the semester team. First, we'll do a quick introduction of the panel. It's now a joint panel, and then we move on to the presentation. So we start with just your organization and.
Good morning. My name is Eva Ngare. I'm from the Action Foundation. We work with children and young people with disabilities. And as an organization, we are very glad to be part of this forum to just share a little bit about how we are partnering with counties around that work.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shiko Mbogwa. I work with the EdTech Hub. The EdTech Hub is a research partnership that is funded by the FCDO, who is the UK Development. I think their logo is somewhere. Together with the World Bank and the Gates Foundation. And our mandate is simple. Let's investigate and generate evidence around how to implement technology in education. And let's make sure that our decision makers, I'm glad a lot of them are in the room, have this information so that they can guide how EdTech is implemented for teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Gladys Masai from Semastea. Semastea stands for Center for Mathematics, Science and Technology Education in Africa. Our mandate, we are a public institution under the Ministry of Education. Our mandate is to build capacity of curriculum implementers and conduct research in STEM education. Thank you.
So the rest of Semastea team will just mention your name, since Gladys has already talked about who Semastea is.
Thank you very much. My name is Clotilda Nyongesa from the Mathematics Department of Semastea, a trainer and a numeracy champion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Karanja. I also am a member of Semastea. I'm in chemistry department. I also do head the research and development department. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Odol. I work for Site Savers as a technical advisor in inclusive education. And Site Savers leads the inclusion component of the INSPIRED program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think with that, let's invite the Semastea team. They'll take just 10 minutes, and then Charles will take another 5 minutes, and the other colleagues, EdTech and the Action Foundation, 5 minutes each, and then we're able to wrap up, because I know there's a group that should be coming in at 11, and we don't want to be fighting with other partners. Yes, so Semastea team.
Okay, thank you very much. Just go to the... Yes, but... Yeah, thank you. Just the next slide. Next. And the question we were to respond to is about error analysis, and I will say something. You have been told what Semastea is, and I like what the speakers who were earlier on stage here talking about foundational learning. Very sensitive that we have to get it right at the beginning stage. 1,000 miles begin with the first step. And the first step, we need to get it right. Now, at Semastea, we believe that the architect of all this is the teacher. And that is why we will be talking about the teacher. And I liked a member in the audience who responded earlier talking about now teachers need to be retooled so that we are getting it right. So Semastea, we look at data-driven evidence in that we need what is it that we can help teachers to help the learners, that the learner at that low level can confidently maybe count correctly 1 up to 10. And that is why we went into error analysis as an approach to pedagogy, approach of how a teacher can instruct those learners confidently so that they gain the learning outcomes we expect. At PP1, they can count confidently from 1 up to 10 without missing. So error analysis is actually a systematic way that a teacher uses to understand the learners, to understand the mistakes that they are doing, and use the mistakes to help hold the learner's hands, help change the instructional method so that the learners master and get it right, to make it correct at every other level that they graduate to. So in simpler words, that is what error analysis is. And in the classroom, a teacher will want to pick out, and as we are talking of quality and inclusion, in that I have 20 learners in my class. Learner A, what mistakes is this learner making? And a one-off mistake is not an error. So the teacher makes a deliberate effort to study the pattern of the mistakes that the learners are making, then interrogate. I have to help the development of the mental process of these learners. Why are they making these mistakes? How are they making these mistakes? So the teacher goes at a further level to categorize. Is it out of memory? I asked learner A to count, and the learner is like 1, 2, 4, 6. You see, they're skipping numbers. So the teacher thinks, how do I get to help this learner count confidently? So the teacher has to categorize and say, okay, there is memory lapse, so maybe this could be a factual error. So the teacher has gone ahead. There are errors that are being made. So categorizing, this is a factual error. Now, maybe the way the learners are doing it is not correct. The learner has to count the chairs, okay? And remember, at this level we are talking of early childhood, the learner's learning is about play-based and activities, simply that. And so the teacher gives some short activities that are play-based, and the learner begins to count the chairs here and begins at 2. So meaning the procedure, the learner is not getting it right. So the teacher can be able to categorize. Is it a misconception that when I have gone further beyond 10, the learners are thinking 13 is 1 plus 3 and not 13 the way it is? So the teacher categorizes that and thinks of working with these learners. How do I help them? So they come up with activities, interventions that speak to a specific child. This one, the problem is they're not able to count. How do what resources do I use so that I address this error to help this learner come out? And after categorizing like that, intervention strategies now come in. And Semastea, what we do, and I will mention this, we have done this error analysis as a research in one of the counties, no, 2 counties, in Bungoma and Nairobi. So in Bungoma, what we did, after sitting in those classes with the teachers, after being able to watch through and see, we sat with the teachers, and as we were noting the errors, so how do we co-create knowledge in that? What strategies do we use for intervention? And we sat with the teachers and made the resources that were to address. The learner is not able to count. Can we make tangible, concrete materials that we can place there so that the learner is playing? What singing games can be used to help this learner do rote counting? Can we, if the learner is not able to write the number 2, can we use the tracing papers? Can we use the cutouts? So we sat with the teachers, did that together, modeled some micro lessons with the teachers, went back to the classes with the teachers, and they were able to use that. And later on now, when we went to check on the learners again for midline, there was improvement. So we are talking of how does the teacher use the errors that the learners are making to hold their hands, help them get out of that, because you find that if the mistake is not corrected, it actually makes things difficult at a later level. So after doing the interventions with the teachers, there was improvement. You find that learner engagement improved, and there was a video I had wanted to show now when we try to replicate the same, and the same thing happens to a school in Nairobi. And we did practically sat with the teachers, developed materials, and when the teacher was using concrete objects to help the learners do the activities, there was a big change in which they were getting the things. So I would like to say that please bring us on board, the county governments. We would like to work together, that we replicate this to more counties and help the learners get it right at the beginning stage. I would like to invite my colleague, Titu. Yeah, we would have wished this would have been running. It's okay, you can go ahead. It can be running on silence.
Okay. So thank you very much, my colleague. Yeah, so that's what we did. I think for us is just to see the presentation that was there before in terms of guidelines and policy brought about the need to bring on board the children to school. So ours is only to request, the way Madam Clotilda has indicated, bring them to us. But we need to ask ourselves, why this? Why does it work? So the first is that when you use this approach, then you're able to address the learners' misconceptions very early, because the way we all know is that if learners proceed to primary school with some misconceptions, then those misconceptions might become bigger learning gaps. The other why is that we promote metacognition. That is, the learner is able, once you guide the learner how to identify the errors they are making, the mistakes they are making, and address them, then the learners will be able to reflect back as they undergo through learning to see whether they are doing it right as they have previously done. And the last why, perhaps because of time, the second why is that you enable learners to build resilience. You know, resilience, people think that the social-emotional will only come up at the very late, maybe when at grown-up level. But even those learners, when you mark them wrong, to what extent do you affect their social emotions? So when you guide them how to identify, and you don't just tell them they are wrong without guiding them how tomorrow they will overcome, then you enable them to be able to do that. So my last one, because of time, I only want to give you an example, because as a country, we are complaining that there is a lot of marginalization. Now, how does, you see at the ECD, how is your county marginalized? Is it not you yourself who is marginalizing yourself? Isn't it? So I want to give an example of potato. A potato, you know a potato? You know a stone, a hardy stone, these pebbles you are seeing here. And also you know an egg, eh? So look at those three objects. Consider you have boiled water and you have dipped them. You have dipped them in boiling water. Will they behave the same? What will happen to an egg? It will harden. It will harden, isn't it? If you can crush very easily an egg, eh? But once you dip it, it hardens. Eh? What about a stone, that pebble? It will neither harden nor soften. It will retain the state, isn't it? What about a potato? It will soften, isn't it? So if you look, so where are you? So the potato, the egg, and the stone are the learners. This boiling water is our counties. So the learners will behave. It is the opportunity that we need to bring them. Let us not say that we are marginalized. All our counties are boiling water, we are uniform. It is how we treat these learners or how we perceive ourselves that make us imply that we are marginalized. So bring those teachers to us. We shall work with them and surely they will deliver.
Thank you so much. Maybe I have 1 minute. I want to say that in Semastea, we've started a foundational room. And this is the process we followed. We did a desk review, document analysis on the curriculum designs for PP1 and PP2. Using the learning experiences, we identified all the learning resources required to teach those classes. We collaborated with early years experts. We've developed a very good resource using locally available resources. And we use this to showcase best practices from teachers from different counties who visit us. We will just showcase that foundational room, video 2. And then I'll tell you how we are scaling up the error analysis. So the error analysis you've been taken through, that strategy, we'll be scaling it up in 15 counties. We got a grant from Echidna Givings, and we are targeting 15 counties. So we will be working with the COG very closely to reach out to those 15 counties. We've already done conceptualization of that project. We've developed data collection tools, and we'll be coming to those counties. I'll show you the counties. This is our foundational room. Go back to the PowerPoint. I show you the 15 counties. We've developed the data collection tools, and we'll be collecting data in your counties from the 3rd week after opening. Go on. Those are the counties. There are 15. And in each county, we'll be training 400 teachers, 100 teachers of PP1 and PP2, 100 teachers in grade 1, 100 teachers in grade 2, and 100 teachers in grade 4. So we are looking forward to working very closely with you people. These counties were listed because they have some issues with gender issue in enrollment of children. Either children are not getting the school readiness when they are supposed to graduate to grade 1. So these are the counties that we'll be working with. I want to thank all of you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you. Clap once again for the semester team. Thank you so much. I think the counties will urge you to have one-on-one with the semester team after this, and then you can also see how to link up with the COG for arranging the work that follows this. So I think straight away I'll go to the other session so that we are able to save on time. I'll invite Charles to brief us on what counties should do around equity and inclusion, and then I'll follow with the EdTech, and then the Action Foundation will come last.
Good morning once again. I'm pushed for time, and so a number of issues have already been raised during earlier presentations, and that makes it even easier for me because a number of things that I have identified as gaps in the counties that hinder or make it complicated and difficult for learners with disabilities at ECD level have already been identified. Counties have a mandate that only them can actualize and make able, because all county governments have a unique understanding of the communities that they come from. They have a unique understanding of the challenges that they face, and they have a unique mandate that has been given to them by the Constitution in regard to early years education. And so a number of barriers still exist to prevent learners with disabilities from maximizing and thriving in education. And I'll just name a few. In some instances, infrastructure is still a very, very difficult issue. Capacity of teachers, and you just heard counties complaining about retooling, confirming that capacity of teachers, not just in delivering in their mandate, but also in providing support for learners with disabilities. The aspect of attitude among communities, amongst children, and among regions is still an issue. Delayed or misdiagnosed needs of learners with disabilities is still quite an issue in many of our counties. Marginalization, which comes with stigma, still a very big issue among many of our counties. And of course, shortage of learning materials, as has already been identified by Mr. Kizito, among others, is also been identified. And what should we do? An author called Arthur Chan says that diversity is a fact, equity is a choice that we have to make, but inclusion is an action that we need to take. And we need to act now. We need to take the action now. And in taking an action, we build an inclusive and resilient systems in our county governments that will reach every child. Therefore, looking at every child without first looking at the geography from which the child comes from, without looking at the ability of the child, and so marginalizing those children with disabilities. This will give us inclusive policies that prioritize marginalized children and include those with disabilities, even those that come from very remote areas and areas that are, in some instances, are politically unfriendly. It will bring us to have integrated inclusive services that will combine health, nutrition, protection, and education. You heard that it requires a multi-sectoral approach as in order to meet the needs of the 21st century child, and even more so child with disability. It will give us empowered educators who are trained, supported, and motivated to deliver on quality early learning for our children. I have specific ask of county governments, and especially those that are represented here. Invest in ECD infrastructure that is safe, accessible, and child-friendly. Support teacher development through available training and mentorship. Embed inclusive education into your county strategic action plans and budgets. Engage communities and other stakeholders in co-creating solutions that reflect local realities. And to repeat what has been said, use data to progress and inform decisions. And in doing this, then, we can build, as I have said, an inclusive, resilient early childhood systems that will ensure that every child in Kenya, regardless of where they are born, has an opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive. Thank you.
I will keep it brief because I'm a little scared of my moderator. And I also want to be fair to my colleague as well. I want to tell you a very short story of the amazing year we have had collaborating with government. As I said, I work for EdTech Hub, and in partnership with an ecosystem builder called the EdTech East Africa, we began to curate some forums. In fact, I'm glad to be sharing the stage with Semester because we host the national conversation every year at Semester. But 2 years ago, we realized we were only holding a national conversation. And so we had our national leaders, we had Ministry of Education represented, but we didn't know what was going on in the counties. So we decided to devolve a little bit. And we've had, for the last 2 years, we've had 4 summits. We've had one in the coast to cover that region. We had one in Meru this year to cover the region of Central. We had one in Garissa for our frontier counties. And just 2 weeks ago, we were hosted by Kisumu for the one for Nyanza and Western. I'm looking at Madam Waziri to know whether she was even aware. But the reason I think that these forums are needed is because when we're talking about education, we rarely talk about the technology bit of it. Or if we do, we put it on the side. We don't realize that technology is an integral part of the entire education system. So ministry this year is relooking at the ICT in education policy, and they asked us to take them along on this summit so that they can get views from a diverse group of stakeholders. Now, in this room is government, as I mentioned. We have EdTech entrepreneurs who are building amazing solutions for our schools. We have funders, we have teachers, we have everybody basically who is a stakeholder in EdTech. And the very first meeting we had at Coast, our colleagues from the policy directorate asked everybody who was in the room, I think it was a room of about 200, almost 300 people, who had heard of the ICT in education policy. And one person lifted their hand. Out of a room of 250 people exclusively working on EdTech in our schools, one person had read the policy. And then one person had heard of the policy, and then she asked, who has read the policy? Nobody. And that has continued to be the case in every region that we have been to. Now, why I think it's really interesting that government is now coming to these forums to get the views of the stakeholders is that, first of all, it was an eye-opener. That I think we are developing our policies at Jogo, and not only does the education system not know, the stakeholders who we're expecting to partner with don't know. We don't know about these policies. I only read it, I'll be very honest, because I'm a major stakeholder and because I want to be part of these conversations and because government is my friend and we are working together to make sure that the review will be a successful one. But how many people are reading these policies? And I would say this is not unique to education. Last week, Waziri, I was in your county for some work we're doing with health on oxygen. And I was talking about the roadmap for oxygen that was launched earlier this year. Nobody in the room, and they were all managers, had heard of that policy, let alone read it. So there's a gap. There's a gap between, I think someone had mentioned, there's a gap between the policy and the practice. How do we bridge it? I believe one of the ways we bridge it is having some of these forums where we break out of our silos and all come together around a child and give our thoughts and views. For EdTech Hub, we have a stake because when the program was begun 6 years ago, it's an 8-year fund. Kenya got the majority of the funds to do research. So we've done about 7 studies. IDU was one of the first people we did a study with. And in fact, we've done maybe more than 5 studies because we really wanted to understand whether personalized digital learning can help us to begin to bridge the gaps in our classrooms. How do you support the learners that need more support using technology? And we've walked a long journey with IDU. I think they can tell you. When they began with that tool that you now use in all of your counties, it was in a language and accent that our children could not understand. True? But research helped us to understand that you need to localize. Another thing is it wasn't an equitable tool. We were giving one tool to a PP1 class of about 100 learners in some cases. What normally happens is if you give a teacher such a tool in such a class without proper understanding of what that tool is for, they will give it to the fastest learners all the time. So you're accelerating the fast learners who already don't need the acceleration, but we're leaving behind the ones that need support. So we had to alter some of how this tool is delivered in the classrooms to make sure that it's actually helping us.
We've been doing with them. So, well, as technology is coming on, I'll just start again by saying, for those who are not in the room, the Action Foundation is an organization that has been in existence for over 15 years, working with children and young people with disabilities. I came with one of my colleagues, Maureen, you can just wave. And our work with children and young people with disabilities is cuts across many sectors: health, education, social protection, and the likes. And so thank you for that. So now I'll start my presentation in the interest of time. What we are calling it is the Disability Prevention and Rehabilitation Program. Currently, we already started with Kajiado County. It's going to be for 4 years. And what we are doing is basically, let me just give a preamble. So we borrowed a model from Nepal, from an organization called Karuna Foundation. And they used to call the model Inspired to Care model, but they changed that to DPRP, which is what I'm presenting today. That's the Disability Prevention and Rehabilitation Program. So, but in Nepal, we have better structures, we have better policies so far, and some level of central and county government levels are in place. So Kajiado is the first to be privileged, and we hope that there are going to be an ambassador to show and tell what we are able to do. The next slide, please. So what is DPRP? We are really just seeking to enhance success of quality disability prevention and comprehensive rehabilitation services. When you know a child with disability, one of the first things they need is health. Very, very important. Number two is education. We need to get out of the cycle of dependency. So that's really important. Our intended outcomes with county governments is improved health status for the mothers, so that when they visit the hospitals, they're able to get the services they require to prevent disability for what can be prevented. Number two is just to improve the quality of life through the CBR, like community-based rehabilitation. That does not only involve going to the hospital, but how can we, going to the hospital is important, but how can we also localize it to the community level? Last but not least, strengthening our community care and support system. So for 4 years, for the counties that are in the room, I'll share the other counties that we want to work with. The first year is just preparation, MOU, budget, trainings, getting us ready to do this work. Number two, for the next 2 years is now the implementation. We are very, very keen. I know someone else also, Mr. Kizito, talked about the first 1,000 days. That's very critical for us and that model that we borrowed. So how do we work together using that community-based rehabilitation matrix and the prevention program and cost sharing for the next 2 years? And then now for the 4th year is just exit and technical support. What is very important for us is how can we get the government to cost share? If possible, I've put in the matrix, but that could be different from county to county. I've just shared what we've done with Kajiado County, and it's been successful so far. The next slide. So the challenges that the children and people with disabilities face we place them into 3, and that's what we want to solve. Availability of the policies. I see some are coming up, and I'm happy to share that I'm part of that photo that you started with the foundational learning. We're involved to just bring the voice of the people with disabilities. So, championing policies, acts that are really intentional towards the people with disabilities and the children with disabilities. And then number 2 challenge is stigma, the cultural beliefs and all that. I can go on and on. The non-acceptance. I think it's about time to leave nobody behind because of our cultural beliefs. Last but not least, rehabilitation services, what they really require. Children with disabilities they almost fall in 5 categories. The hearing, and the physical rehabilitation, the ones who have slow speech, rehabilitation around that. So these kind of services are hardly available. When you ask around, I would really like to know about the other counties, the rehabilitation services. Are they available for children with disabilities? So our main goal in this one is just to seek to increase this access for the quality disability prevention and just those services for young people. And and to treat every child as their own. So even if they've come with the same disability, treat them as their own and save every child at every cost. So let's value each other. The next one. I'll talk about, just move ahead so that I talk about what's interesting again. Yes. So what we've been able to do so far, we signed the MOU with the county government and with some of our partners. You can see them in that photo. Next. We've had meetings with key leadership members in the county government that really, we just convened key leadership members, county assembly, including the chairs of health, finance, social protection, disability committees, just to introduce this DPRP, because you have to work together with them so that we also secure that cost sharing support model from the level of CECs. And then we also sensitize members of the wards and had meetings with them, trainings around how do you identify children who have disabilities, and from that particular level, assistant, administration level, you're able to send them to the right place where they're able to get the help they require. We also worked with a key stakeholder who are the schools on the education front, and for the schools, also the communities. The schools assisted us as centers where we could be able to do assessment of the kind of disabilities they have, so that we can now in Kajiado County send them to where they can get the help. If it's eyesight, we know where to send them. If it's physical support, we'll know where to send them. And I'm happy to share that. We were able to get around 700 plus children with disabilities in that county. 300 of them have been able to be assisted with assistive technology and all that. So we are moving on well. Also, we had training with sub-county officials. Yes, thanks. The health management team, because they're the key people, just training around. We trained around 45 healthcare team members in Kajiado East. And in Kajiado, we're in Kajiado East, Kajiado West, and Kajiado South, working together in this space. So just working with the health teams, training them on this DPRP kind of model of support. We also worked with the community health assistants. That's very, very important. The CHAS. Yeah, I know we have all these CHAS and CHPs, but we worked in Kajiado County, had trainings with them, skilling them on disability screening, because they're at the community level. How can they screen? How can they identify? And comprehensive rehabilitation services that they can offer even at that level. And also the CHPs, we talk about the community health promoters. They've been key to help us even in mobilizing places that were not reachable. So just mobilizing as much as possible. So we have trained 141 CHPs in Kitengela, in Kapute North, like the northern sides. The other words are very Masai. So I'll keep it at that. But the north-south, I'll wrap it up. Sawa. And then we've trained also the teachers, because of now the children who've now gone into school, or the children who are already in school. You could be having a learner, you think they're a slow learner, and or you think they're not able to read, but they just have an issue with eyesight. So how can a teacher, be able to quickly identify that a child has an issue with the eyesight and help them get glasses, at the very least, and assistive technology? So training the teachers and many other things. So I just want to wrap it up and say there are several other counties that we also want to do this intervention with, and it's just a 4-year one. We hope to interest you, the county governments who are in this space, like Siaya, Kilifi, Moranga, Meru, Samburu. We're in Kajiado, Nairobi is part of it. And we want to have conversations and see how do we support the children with disabilities so that they're able to thrive and not be left behind. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Eva. I think let me check so that we are fair to the other colleagues who could be hosting the next event here. Are the organizers of the next event in the room? Okay, I think we can steal a few more minutes if they're not here. 3 quick questions to any of the panelists here. I don't know whether we have another mic on the ground. Can I show of hands? 3 quick questions, first questions, and then we can just wind it up after the 3 questions. Directed to any of the panelists of interest. Yes, Waziri.
Okay, thank you. I just want to really appreciate what you're doing. All of you, it's my question, but I just want to tell you, karibuni to the counties. We're looking forward partnering with you. I'll personally be visiting each and every one of you to talk on behalf of the other CECs, just see how you can partner with us. Kama stia karibuni Busia, we can start there. And I'm also looking forward to EduTech. I know I work very closely with ADU, and we are very excited about what's happening in the ECD centers. Our struggle as counties is actually on what the two of you shared, learners with disabilities. We're having challenges, capacity building our teachers, or even just identification and how to. So you are very much welcome to the counties. Asanteni.
Thank you very much. Wasiri is saying, welcome to all the counties, but particularly start with Busia. Any other question? You start with Busia. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Kanyoko. I'm from Homa Bay, and I'm part of the leadership of Homa Bay County Disability Forum, which is a consortium of OPD organizations from the grassroots. My first question goes to Semester. First of all, let me ask you, what was the criteria of choosing counties that you'd support and train teachers? Because I'm really concerned. Homa Bay, we are doing a lot with our partner organization, where we try to make sure inclusive education works so well. And right now, we are doing it throughout the county. And so we feel if you support our teachers, then we are good to go, and we are going to help our children with disability. And again, we are going to bring to reality our dream of inclusive education. Number two, how do you ensure that children with disability are not only included, but feel empowered, considering that you're doing something on technology education, where today we know about the STEM, where science, technology, education is key. Another thing is, my question goes back again to you, where how do you ensure and make sure and measure the impact of the teachers trained, of your teachers that you train about the inclusive education? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any last question or comment? We have Director Mata here and Director Kizito. We can have the two of them and then wind up.
Thank you very much. And I think this is quite some work being done, and the diversity of our actions is evident. There are many people wanting to do something, but we must therefore speak with each other and support each other in moving forward. Now, just a reflection on disability, county governments, and the law. In the Constitution, special needs education is a national government function. And that means any requirement for special needs education, be it in ECD, be it in primary and blah, is a national government function. Then now the disability issues generally. In spite of the recently enacted law and policy, the architecture of disability action by government has remained intact. The National Council, blah, 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 the funds, who is supposed to manage the funds and all that. Now, when we get into the county government, and we want the county government, therefore, to commit itself, we usually ask ourselves, but national government has the money. It is there. There are two funds, two different funds on matters disability. But we want to commit the county government without then looking at where the money is for disability, and therefore have the county government utilize part of that money to invest in the people with disabilities for all the interventions required. I don't know if, sorry, I missed the name. Eva. If Eva, you have had that reflection as you engage with the county governments on the institutional, the financing architecture, and the distribution of functions between the two levels of government on addressing issues of disability. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to appreciate all of you and even many others who are not represented here in the overwhelming way in which you engage in this space of VC. Mine is just very brief, and I want to appreciate almost all the organizations here. At least we also interact with them at the national, as I said earlier. But I just want to emphasize again that it's always good that even when you start at least when you come at the national, just for consultations, then you get a lot of other insights. And I know right now we are engaging with Semastea. I think the Action Foundation also we engage, but we are also understanding some of the other new areas they are going into, so that issues like the one Director Kizito is raising, we are able also to let you know. And the way we are talking about data to action, then again, we are able to tell you from the national level what has happened where and what did we learn. Because the problem is that most of the times there's a lot of duplication, that this is going with this, you find another one already going on and on, uncoordinated. So that kind of coordination, again, I just want to wish that we coordinate, because even when you come, we'll be able to tell you the door which you use to the county governments. Most of you don't know, and you take a lot of time out there wandering in the wilderness. And there's the COG, which we can easily tell you that if you want to go here, approach Director Kizito or write to the CEO this way at the COG, so that they can help you do A, B, and C and convene for you the right people. So that kind of coordination is really a big challenge, and I think you really need to help us to help you coordinate better. Because when you just walk into the county governments, you ask maybe those political leaders who are willing, then at some point you find that maybe some things were not done right and without technical guidance. So that is my comment on the same.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your feedback and comments. Maybe what I want to do is to invite the panelists, just a minute to each. Either you respond to something or you give your final reflection as we close. I want to start with Charles going this way.
Hello, because none of the questions was actually directed at me, but I want to join in the reflection that Dr. Kizito is raising. And we are looking at that learner at ECD level who sits in a PP1 class, which is a class that is facilitated by the county government. Yes, we are aware that the money for special needs education, which is what they are calling capitation, begins at grade 1. But now this child who is at ECD level and requires support, we cannot wait until the child joins grade 1 to start receiving capitation, which we expect he will eventually get. And that's where we are getting to talk to county governments, that education at this level has been devolved to you. And therefore that includes all learners who are at this level. As you focus your plans for the rest of the class, then the rest of the learners, please set aside funds that will support this learner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll respond maybe to the second concern of the officer from Homa Bay. She required to know how we ensure that our trainings are impactful. Our trainings are data-driven. So what we do is once we go train teachers, we'll go and observe them in the classroom using a tool so that we identify the index. Then we walk along the journey of training them both in school as well as maybe in a conference. We'll again visit them to the school and we re-observe them. So we're able to keep track of a certain index and we're able to inform maybe the county or the other stakeholders who are related with that. So we're able to measure and we share even with the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like the positivity in the room. Maybe just responding also on making sure that inclusivity is done in class. When we are developing our modules, we normally consider a multi-agency approach, and we have always remembered to bring people from KISE in our planning and developing of the module so that the materials we have are adapted. And we have also noted that besides other disabilities that can be seen that are evident, there are also learning difficulties that go on in class, and we take care that the teacher gets to note those who are lagging behind and applies differentiation as they teach. So we really, like Dr. Mtito has mentioned, during the coaching, we follow up with the teacher, and even as we rate, we actually sit with the teacher to improve, to see that they are working with every learner. Thank you so much. We hope that we will be coming to work together. Asante.
Thank you so much for the kind comments we've gotten. I want to answer the question from the officer from Homa Bay. The criteria we used to select the 15 counties was based on what the funder said, that we should pick counties that have gender disparity in enrollment of learners at those levels. And we used data from the national government. So those were the counties, the 15 first counties. Although I'm aware you might have a gender disparity, but it is not to that high magnitude. So we picked the first 15 counties, but we are very much willing to work with you. We are open. I told you we have a foundational room where we work with teachers to develop materials, and we help teachers to understand how to interpret the curriculum designs and also do assessment of learners. So we are open to work with all county governments. But the funds we got were for 15 counties. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'd also like to join the same sentiments with my colleague. It's a dilemma that we will have to work to, have a conversation around. But thank you for bringing that up, and we'll have those conversations. But as well, we've also have had conversations with the people from the special needs, and from those conversations, then those have led to many interventions that we're doing. But we will do the courtesy call and share everything that we are doing so that it's all coordinated and well done. But otherwise, I'd like to share that let's all join in the fight to bring every child on the table, especially the ones with disability. This is the 21st century, and let's not leave any child behind. Thank you.
I'll keep mine really simple. This is to express our absolute delight to work with all of you. I will be looking for you after this, especially COG. I don't think we've ever had an interaction. I think it's important. We've had a lot of conversation about data today, but the data is only as good as how we equip those that collect it, and our teachers especially. How do we leverage on technology? It's virtually impossible to collect good data manually for 100 learners. Data that can be able to speak to progress, data that can be able to speak to their health, data that can be able to speak to their attendance, which of course impacts how they perform. How do we also free up? There's a lot going on in our classrooms. How do we make sure that when Semester calls them, they're not stressed about the fact that Semester wants to sit with them for 2 hours and they have to do manual reports? How do we make technology a lever for teachers? I think we've focused a lot on learners. And if we're frank with ourselves, we haven't seen the gains we've wanted to see with all of the investment that has been made. And I think on the continent, we've made a significant investment. So how do we leverage tech for data? For the last comment, I'll step out of my role and now speak as a Kenyan. Because on this table, there's a lot of funding. And the reality is that this funding may not be there at all in the form that we know it going forward. How can you coordinate us as government so that you make sure the little we have is going to fill all the holes? It doesn't make sense for 3 of us to tackle the same problem and there's another problem that hasn't been tackled. Again, how do you leverage on tech to make sure that you know who we all are, what we're all doing? How do you join us up together? The government is so powerful that if you came and told me and EDT to work together, it would be up to us to figure out how. But if we wanted to work in our schools, we would make it happen. Could you just be a little bit more aggressive with how you coordinate us? Because we have a little time with money that is dwindling, and we need to build sustainable programs that we can be proud of for years to come. I'll stop there.
Thank you. I think that is a very good note to close. How can government coordinate us at both levels, national and county? I think moving forward, as Waziri wa Busia amesema, you pick direct discussions with members here and see how you can be able to move along. We are going to continue working with you at both national, COG and county governments together at 3 levels. Level 1, as INSPIRED, we have some agreed mandate with the ministry and assigned MOU. We are actually finalizing the MOU with COG, and we need to start working for the next 1 year from September on 5 main things. One is, how do we help counties to begin to start collecting their data so that ECE data becomes part of KEMIS, working with the ministry and COG, because sometimes when we are planning, people are struggling to see where ECE data is. And I think even the ministry says, when National Treasury and Planning is budgeting for education, they're struggling to get figures for ECE to budget. And I think now this is the challenge now we want to throw to the counties. Can we work with you? We've suggested that we'll work with COG and ministry to pilot this. We were proposing 2 counties where we work, Wajir and Mandera. But because of the commitment I've seen in the room, I don't know how many CECs are here, because I want to say that because of the commitment, we say how many CECs are here? I think most of them have left, but I want to suggest, I'm going to talk to my team, if we can include Busia and Embu, because of the commitment they've shown in that pilot. And probably if we add another one, then we pilot with, we budgeted for 2. We can see, I'll talk to my team to see if we can tweak the budget to do the pilot in 5 counties. Oh, Homa Bay, hey, okay. We have seen you. So, what we'll do, we need to have a meeting with you and Martha to just design how because what I think ministry is keen is to pilot how data comes from the county to inform national planning and decision making. And I think EdTech, you will see how you can help us leverage on technology when we do that. That's the decision we want to have. Then we are also in the last 1 year bringing together CSOs that are working with both COG and the ministry in what we are calling CSO Coalition on Foundational Learning. So the first level that we want to do is we coordinate ourselves before we go to Bwana Kizito and before we go to Madam Martha. So that when we go, we don't want you to go today, Eva will go tomorrow, I go the other day, and Telis comes after me. They'll just asking, but your colleague was here talking about the same thing. Let's talk about that same thing and say, for COG, when we go, this is the priority. You could be leading one priority, I lead another priority, Telis leads another, and coordination will be very easy. So everybody coming in, they'll say, you go and talk to the CSO coalition. We already have a framework. So I think that is what you want to champion. Then we are also looking at how do we support COG to review schemes of service for teachers. We also want to look at intergovernmental coordination framework. That is one of the priorities. And then financing framework for ECE. COG told us that they're trying to lobby Senate and the Commission for Revenue Allocation to give funds direct to ECE, but they're being asked for data and justification. You are asking for money. How much? Why? We want to see if we can support that process. And then I think the other one is the model policy. We will be able to see how we work with the ministry and COG to do that. Yesterday, I was in another room the other side where the children services is also working on an integrated ECD policy. So we want to see how do we pull all these 3, because I know the ministry already has a policy that governs. COG wants a model policy. Children's Services is working on integrated policy. How do we bring? How can we bring the 3 together to have one national policy on these things? So I think that is where we are. We will be free to engage directly with the members, partners here, moving forward. But I think what we'll do is, out of this, we'll do a small report, and then we can actually, based on that, we can organize our first meeting. Our first meeting as a CSO coalition. I know Director Kizito will be very lucky. He convenes us on very short notice. Sometimes we just call him overnight. Say, are you there tomorrow morning? We come for tea. So we can do that in the month of September. And then we do the same with Martha here. So that at least moving forward, when we start appearing coordinated, we'll make it very easy for them to coordinate us. Thank you so much. I think with that, I want us to close here and make 2 requests. We make sure that you sign, because we are going to sign the form and give correct email. We will send all these presentations to you. We'll also send a report to you. And possibly, we also want to make sure that we increase networking. We are going to type the list of participants and send you the contacts. Yeah, so that you could begin to see who do you want to reach out to across the landscape. So we'll send those maybe a week from now.